Welcome to another episode of Brooklyn's World. So I've been called into the hospital for an emergency Cat 1 consult with an orthopedic person. I have absolutely no idea what it's about because I've still got my normal orthopedic appointment in 2 days' time where they will check my arm. So I don't know what this Cat 1 thing is. Soon find out, I guess. Waiting. So I'm finally back from the hospital. I was there for 3.5 hours. I couldn't believe that I was there for that long. So this appointment turned out to be a bit different to what I had perceived it to be. I was told that it was a Category 1, very important appointment. It was meant to be with one specific head doctor all about my arm. So I thought, okay, we should be getting somewhere now. This seems important. Well, it turns out that it wasn't much different to the normal orthopedic clinics that I've been going to every 3 weeks. It basically was exactly the same. So I went there and I sat on what had to be the most uncomfortable chairs that could possibly exist in the entire world. And I waited and waited and waited. Then my name was called. And much to my disgust, it was the same man that I had to deal with last appointment who didn't listen to me and was very dismissive of everything. So I thought, great, this is the head guy that I'm seeing. This is not going to turn out too well at all. So the first thing he did is just do a bit of an examination of my arm. And then he asked me, have I had x-rays yet? Which I told him that I hadn't. I then told him that when I rang up to confirm the appointment, I asked did I need x-rays first, and they said no. So that was pretty much the end of my consult with him, because he just said I need to see x-rays and filled out a form, and then that was it. I had to go and have x-rays. One thing that he did say to me though, when I was complaining that when I go to sleep, and obviously I can't control where my arms go when I'm asleep, and if I wake up in the mornings and my broken arm is completely flat, it causes massive amount of pain for me to be able to get it moving and even be able to get out of bed. And his response was, aren't you sleeping in your sling? And I just looked at him and said, no, and nobody ever told me that I'm meant to be sleeping in a sling for this entire time. And he just kind of looked at me like I was the biggest idiot for not sleeping in a sling for this whole time. Then he just told me to go and get the x-ray, and as soon as that was done, I would just come back and he would see me again straight away. So all of that was fine. I went, got the x-ray. That took another little while of just waiting. Finally got the x-ray done, went back to the specialist consulting suite, only to find out that the specialist, he'd now left for the day. So I had to wait, and then my name got called. But I was happy this time because it was the nice doctor, the very first doctor that I saw on my first appointment, who is not dismissive and who did help me and was really quite helpful. So this time he had a look at my x-rays, and guess what? I still have a broken arm. It has not healed yet, and we are now on 8 weeks and 5 days since I had my fall. And he was sort of like, it really should have healed by now. So he had a better look at the x-rays, and then he discussed the tumour with me in detail, which was so helpful to me, especially considering I got the brush off from Mr. Head Specialist in my last appointment. He explained that I definitely do have an enchondroma, which is a non-cancerous tumour, but he still isn't quite sure what to do with it. And that, in combination with the fact that I still have a fracture and it's a very, very clear line still on the x-rays of where the fracture is, he asked me to go and have a CT scan so they can get a little bit more extra information. So that was fine. Quite happy to do that. And that basically was the end of the appointment. So I went and made the appointment for the CT scan, which I have in a couple of days, and then I'm back to see them again in 1 week's time. Good news out of this appointment though was I am now allowed to take my arm out of the sling for certain times of the day if I feel like it. It doesn't have to be in a sling all of the time. He also said that I'm allowed to hold a cup of coffee in my hand and I'm allowed to use a knife and fork again. So we are making progress, but I still can't believe that after all of this time, I'm still broken. Hi again. So here's a little bit more of my story. When I went to have the CT scan, it was basically exactly the same as the last one that I'd had. When I walked into the room, I just said straight to the lady who was going to do the scan, "Do I have to be in the Spider-Man position again?" And she just laughed and said, "So you've done this before?" "Yes, assume the position." The scan was quick, so I wasn't there very long. Another test completed. I also managed to get an appointment to get the bone density scan that the lupus clinic had wanted me to get. And I was so happy that I was able to get it in the town that I live in, instead of having to go all the way to the city, which is a 7 to 8 hour round trip. I got the results the same day as well, which turns out to be very useful for my next orthopedic clinic. So by this stage of my journey, I'm now up to week 10 of having a fractured arm. I returned to the orthopedic clinic again, and I was very happy when my name was called, and it wasn't the head of the department, the horrible man who was not very helpful. It was somebody else. I thought, oh good, hopefully this appointment goes okay. This doctor was very thorough, and he'd actually read my file, which was very, very nice to see that he was doing that. He looked at my x-rays and the CT scan and said to me that only the very edge of one side of my fracture had started to show some bone growth. So basically, I was still pretty much still fractured. I asked him if he could just cut open my arm and super glue the fracture all back together and then sew me up. And then while they're in the operating room, cut open the other piece of my arm and get out my tumour, my echondroma, and then sew that up as well. And we'd just be done with this whole experience, because 10 weeks is more than long enough. The doctor laughed at my super glue comment, but then he said that I have a nerve that's running from basically where the fracture is, which this nerve is in that position for everybody, so I guess that's okay. And then where the nerve runs down your arm, it is running exactly where my tumour is growing. So, of course, me being me, my body being my body, which seems to be the most uncooperative body that you could come across, has to have a tumour grow right where the nerve is. It has my whole arm, my whole body to grow in, but no, it has to grow right where the nerve is. He said that operating would be hugely risky, because if they did anything to that nerve at all, then there's a chance that it would make my wrist really limp and that I would have limited movement in my hand and fingers. So for now, an operation is a big no-no. him how long does he think that it's going to take for my arm to heal completely. And he said, well, based on that it's taken 10 weeks to get just a tiny bit of bone growing back, I predict another 2 to 3 months before you are healed completely. He asked me to wear my sling in situations where it's crowded or there's chances that I will get my arm knocked, because he said if it's knocked too hard or if I fell on it again, then it definitely would break, and then we'd be in a lot more trouble than we are in now. He then told me that the person who had done my CT scan had managed to cut off half of my tumour, the echondroma. So he wasn't able to get a really good look at that. But he said for now, it's just to be left, and I'm to get it checked again every 12 months to see if it's growing. And then if it is growing, then action would need to be taken. So from here on, I don't have to return to the clinic. I just need to get another x-ray in about 2 to 3 months' time to see if the fracture has healed. And hopefully it is completely healed and I can just get back to my normal life again. Thank you for staying updated with my story. This one just seems to keep going and going and going. I really didn't think that I had managed to do so much damage to my arm when I fell 10 weeks ago. But I guess it is what it is, and I just need to be patient and let the healing process continue. See you in the next video.